I'm rather hoping that you, as well as Emma Kennedy, are going to enjoy this, because I know Emma will.
Well, I'm already sitting on the edge of my seat anticipating what it might be.
Well, I said at the beginning of the show that we could reflect on today's Daily Telegraph report that the EU would only offer an extension to Article 50 on condition we hold either a second referendum or a general election. Or I suggested we could discuss the former Tory, which seems weird when you're talking about the recently departed Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, the former Tory Philip Hammond, and his claim that all the Brexiteer extremists who've been droning on about the advantages of new trade deals, well, they've been pulling our chain. Because according to the Treasury and the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, new non-EU trade deals, the ones that all the Brexiteer extremists keep talking about as if they're, well, the unicorns, the holy grail, apparently they would only boost the UK's GDP by something like 0.2%, and then not until 2030. Meanwhile, Boris's vision of a sort of fully independent UK, independent of the EU, they reckon that would cost us up to 7% in lost growth. Suddenly this Brexit's looking like an expensive mistake. Or is it? Jason Hunter, former international trade negotiator. Jason's on the line now. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon.
Nice talking to you. We must have been given some indication before that non-EU trade deals might not add up to much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was in Geneva at the WTO at the back end of last year, and at that time they said, look, Liam Fox could have been forgiven. He's our former international trade secretary. He could have been forgiven for making all those public statements about how wonderful trade deals we're going to get all over the world.
The easiest trade deals in the world, as I recall, was Liam Fox's quote, wasn't it?
Yeah, it must have been David Davis, but yes. But when they were saying that, he said he could be forgiven when he started to say that. But since then, he's been back and forth to the WTO 8 times. He's been around the world twice. Now he knows that when he makes these ridiculous public statements, he knows that he's lying to the public. That's from the horse's mouth in Geneva. Yesterday, Liz Truss was at the WTO in Geneva, making a wonderful speech saying how they must have missed us for the last 45 years, but now Britain is back and we're going to take our seat back at the WTO. The fact that the WTO is only 25 years old, she's our current International Trade Secretary. How can she possibly not know what she's talking about? Ignorance in government is astounding. It really is.
But there's ignorance. But I would suggest that there's something different at play here, isn't it? Which is a refusal to engage with I was going to say reality, but actually it's more nuanced than that, isn't it? The experts is what we're talking about. That right from the very beginning of the debate about in or out of the European Union, we've had to deal with experts, and a lot of people who prefer the sort of Brexiteer route take the view that experts just tell us lies, and that the truth is something that we can only achieve when we leave the European Union. And I presume those self-same people, confronted by this information from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, are just going to say it's nonsense, it's lies, it's Project Fear.
And they will continue to that. I mean, it's easier to believe a snake oil salesman like Nigel Farage than it is actual facts. I mean, take the rollover of some of the MRAs with the United States, the mutual recognition agreement.
Yes.
Thanks to our EU membership, just the list of MRAs between the United States and the European Union runs to 26 pages. We've rolled over 3 titles out of those 26 pages of lists of titles. Now, and that's seen as some kind of success. I mean, these MRAs range from everything from veterinary checks to research and development, scientific partnerships. It includes X-raying containers as they come in on ships across the Atlantic, back and forth. It's because of these 26 MRAs that have taken over 25 years to sign up between the EU and the States. It's because of those that USA is our second largest export destination, taking 25% of our exports nearly. Now, the EU is the most important of our export markets, taking plus 45% plus of all of we trade because of economic gravity. It's cheaper to logistically produce a good and deliver it to your nearest customers, which are right across the channel from us.
You make it sound so obvious.
It is. It's common sense.
It sounds common sense to me, Jason.
But it's only the biggest trading bloc on the planet. Why on earth would we want to trade with it?
I mean, the fact that we are geographically and geologically a tiny island on the northeast edge of the Atlantic Ocean we don't have sufficient raw materials to manufacture the goods and things that we need. So we also need to import significant amounts of products. And when the pound crashed back in 2016, and it's continued to decline and is likely to decline further with a no-deal Brexit, we're increasing the cost of all of our raw materials that come into the UK. I mean, the UK sells over £350 million of handbags for the European Union every single year, duty and tariff and barrier free.
Mrs. Wright is listening now. You piqued her interest, I can tell you. Right, tell us more. Handbags, right? So, I mean, that's a lot of handbags.
Interesting number, that, 350 million pounds. We also sell £900 million of shoes to the European Union. We don't have enough leather in the UK to make those shoes.
Cobblers! We just need to kill more cows.
£3 billion of clothing that we manufacture in the UK. There's a lot of livelihoods and jobs in the United Kingdom that rely on these different industries. We talk about farming, we talk about agriculture, we talk about the automotive sector. But if you add up all the different industries where we import the raw materials to the UK and we export those products back out to the largest single market on the planet, as Emma says rightly, if you start to damage that, we're looking at a target of over 3 million jobs in the United Kingdom.
And it's creative industries as well, which pump £85 billion into our economy. You have musicians, bands, actors, opera singers. They now have got to have visas, etc. And tariffs.
Emma, you're absolutely right. But if you take it a step further, when we lose our intellectual property rights protection, any of these creative industries that are writing songs in the UK and selling them to the European Union to customers and 500 million customers, we lose 150 different treaties that we enjoy. Consumers enjoy the protection of in the UK as well as the European Union. That IP is a really significant thing. You also need to take into account things like GDPR and data protection. Because if you're in Soho and you're in the creative industries, you're a media processing, post-production company, you take clips of videos, Tom Cruise leaping off a building in Munich, for example, for an action movie, that's shot over there, and that video clip is piped down the internet to the United Kingdom of London, where it's post-processed. Contained within that little video clip are things like metadata with the names and email addresses and contact telephone numbers of the cameraman, the sound crew, the extras. We will not be entitled to receive that data post-Brexit as a result of losing those 750 different treaties.
But Jason, at least we'll have our freedom back. Jason Hunter, former international trade negotiator. I didn't want to interrupt you in full flow, mainly because I have nothing to interrupt you with. People have had their vote and they chose freedom. Impoverished freedom. Here's Toby Giddis with the half-hour headlines.
Talk Radio.